The year is 336 BC. The sun begins to set over the rugged terrain of Macedonia, casting long shadows on the battlefield. Amidst the chaos, a young prince, barely 20 years old, rides at the forefront of his cavalry, his sword gleaming in the fading light. This is no ordinary skirmish. It is a pivotal moment that will mark the rise of one of history's greatest conquerors. His name is Alexander, the son of King Philip II, a man whose ambition and vision have already laid the groundwork for a unified Greece under Macedonian rule. But for this young warrior, the world will soon become his stage. As Alexander charges forward, sword raised, his men follow with unwavering loyalty, not yet fully aware that they are witnessing the birth of a legend. Alexander's journey to greatness was shaped by a unique combination of influences: the tactical brilliance of his father and the intellectual guidance of his mentor, the philosopher Aristotle. From an early age, he was taught that he was destined for more than just kingship. He was destined to lead, to conquer, to change the world. Standing on the cusp of adulthood, he had already shown signs of the extraordinary leader he would become. In this moment, leading his troops into battle, he exemplified the courage and tactical genius that would define his reign. The world would soon come to know this young prince as Alexander the Great. But on that day, he was simply a young man proving himself worthy of the throne he would inherit. Little did the world know that this young warrior was about to embark on a journey that would reshape the known world. The years ahead would see Alexander cross continents, subdue empires, and forge a vast dominion that stretched from Greece to the edges of India. His name would echo through the halls of history, not just as a conqueror, but as a visionary who blended cultures and ideas, creating a legacy that would endure for millennia. What began as the son of a Macedonian king defending his father's kingdom would soon evolve into the rise of an empire unmatched in scope and ambition. Welcome to the epic saga of Alexander the Great, a man who would go on to conquer not just lands, but the hearts and minds of people across the ancient world. His rise to power was swift and unstoppable, and his influence would extend far beyond the borders of his empire. From the dusty plains of Macedonia to the grand palaces of Persia, and the uncharted wilderness beyond the Indus, Alexander's story is one of relentless ambition, unparalleled military genius, and a vision that transcended his time. As we embark on this journey, we'll explore the key moments, battles, and decisions that defined his path to greatness, and the enduring impact he left on the world as we know it today. Alexander the Great's story is not simply one of military victories, nor is it just the tale of an ambitious young king expanding his empire. His journey represents the embodiment of human ambition and the transformative power of a single visionary leader. While we often focus on his military conquests, his triumphant campaigns against the mighty Persian Empire, his bold march across foreign lands, and the countless cities he founded, Alexander's legacy runs much deeper. His story is one of cultural integration, intellectual expansion, and a desire to unite disparate peoples under a common banner. As we delve into this narrative, we'll uncover how Alexander's vision extended far beyond the battlefield and how his decisions as a ruler left an indelible mark on history. Alexander's reign spanned just over a decade, but in that short time, he redefined the boundaries of the known world. His empire stretched from the Mediterranean to the edge of the Indian subcontinent, covering territories that included modern-day Greece, Egypt, Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and parts of Pakistan and Afghanistan. However, Alexander did not merely conquer lands. He sought to blend the cultures of the East and West, creating a new era that would come to be known as the Hellenistic Age. Through his policy of cultural fusion, Alexander established Greek as the common language across his empire, encouraging trade, knowledge exchange, and the spread of ideas. This would eventually lead to the flourishing of science, philosophy, and the arts in the centuries to come. Throughout this video, we will explore how a young Macedonian king, raised on the teachings of Aristotle and inspired by the legendary heroes of Homer, transformed himself into one of the greatest figures in world history. From his early victories in Greece and Persia to his relentless march into Central Asia and India, Alexander demonstrated an unparalleled ability to adapt and strategize. His genius was not limited to warfare. It extended to his understanding of governance and diplomacy. By allowing local customs and traditions to coexist alongside Greek culture, Alexander paved the way for a new form of empire building, one that relied not just on force but on the inclusion and integration of diverse peoples. As we look deeper into his story, we'll also reflect on the broader implications of his actions. Alexander's desire to expand the borders of his empire was driven not just by ambition, but by a genuine curiosity for the world around him. His encounters with foreign lands and their people reshaped his understanding of governance, leading him to adopt policies that would influence future empires, including Rome. His campaigns brought together cultures that had once been isolated, creating a melting pot of ideas, knowledge, and traditions that would shape the future of civilizations for centuries. In this context, Alexander's story resonates even today. The challenges he faced, balancing the demands of leadership, managing the ambitions of his followers, and navigating the complexities of cross-cultural relations, are timeless. His life offers insights not only into the nature of power and leadership but also into the impact one individual can have on the course of history. As we journey through his life and achievements, we will come to understand that Alexander's true legacy is not simply the land he conquered, but the enduring cultural and intellectual transformations he initiated. His actions continue to echo through the corridors of history, influencing the development of the modern world in ways both subtle and profound. It will become clear that Alexander the Great was not just a conqueror of lands, but a conqueror of minds, uniting East and West through a shared pursuit of knowledge and progress. His story, one of ambition, brilliance, and vision, serves as a reminder of the enduring power of human potential and the far-reaching consequences of a single life dedicated to the pursuit of greatness. Picture yourself walking through the bustling streets of Pella, the vibrant capital of Macedonia. The city hums with life, a blend of culture, commerce, and military prowess. The scent of leather and metal fills the air, wafting from the blacksmith's forges where weapons are crafted with precision for the Macedonian army. Nearby, the marketplaces are alive with activity, where merchants hawk their goods, and the exotic fragrances of spices from distant lands mingle with the more familiar smells of bread, olives, and wine. This is a city that thrives on both the art of war and the wealth of trade, and every corner reflects the dual nature of Macedonia's ambitions. As you move deeper into Pella, the imposing royal palace rises above the cityscape. Here, within its grand halls, intellectual discourse flows as freely as wine at a banquet. Great philosophers, including the renowned Aristotle, engage in heated debates about the nature of existence, ethics, and the cosmos itself. Their discussions aren't just academic exercises. They shape the minds of future rulers and military leaders. Among the listeners is a young prince named Alexander, whose thirst for knowledge is as intense as his desire for conquest. Under Aristotle's tutelage, Alexander learns not only about philosophy and science but also about the cultural and political systems of the vast world beyond Macedonia. These lessons will shape the way he approaches both war and governance in the years to come. Yet Pella is not just a center of learning. It is also a city steeped in the traditions of warfare. Beyond the palace walls, the clash of swords echoes from the training grounds, where soldiers hone their skills under the watchful eyes of experienced generals. The rhythmic sounds of metal against metal create a constant reminder of Macedonia's military focus. Young Alexander, having been trained in the art of war by his father, King Philip II, spends countless hours in these fields, perfecting his skills as a warrior and a commander. He learns the tactics of cavalry charges, the strategic use of phalanxes, and the importance of discipline and leadership on the battlefield. The martial spirit of Pella is ingrained in him from an early age, preparing him for the extraordinary military campaigns that will define his legacy. In this unique environment, where the intellectual pursuits of the mind meet the brutal realities of war, Alexander is shaped into a leader unlike any other. He is a product of both worlds, the philosophical teachings of Aristotle and the strategic genius of his father. The streets of Pella are filled with stories of the past and whispers of the future. The people of the city, from commoners to nobility, sense that their young prince is destined for greatness. They see in him a rare combination of intellect and martial prowess, qualities that will soon propel him far beyond the borders of Macedonia. Pella itself stands as a symbol of Macedonia's dual identity. It is a place of cultural exchange, where ideas from across the Greek world and beyond converge. At the same time, it is a city constantly preparing for war, a reflection of Macedonia's role as both a center of learning and a military powerhouse. This is the environment in which Alexander is forged, absorbing the best of both worlds, the wisdom of the ancient philosophers and the unyielding discipline of a warrior. These streets, filled with the pulse of daily life, the clang of swords, and the murmur of scholarly debate, are the very foundation of the empire Alexander will one day build. Alexander the Great was no ordinary man. From the moment of his birth, he was destined for greatness, molded by some of the most brilliant minds and strategic thinkers of his time. His education was entrusted to none other than Aristotle, the great philosopher whose teachings had a profound impact on the young prince. Aristotle instilled in Alexander a deep love for knowledge, philosophy, and the rich culture of Greece. Under Aristotle's guidance, Alexander was exposed to a wide range of subjects: ethics, politics, logic, medicine, and the natural sciences. Aristotle's influence went far beyond academics. He nurtured in Alexander a curiosity about the world, an appreciation for diverse cultures, and a vision of uniting the East and West. This intellectual foundation would serve as a cornerstone for Alexander's future conquests, shaping the way he governed and interacted with the people of the vast territories he would later conquer. However, the brilliance of Alexander's mind was matched by the military genius of his father, King Philip II of Macedon. Philip was a formidable strategist who not only transformed Macedonia into a military powerhouse but also unified the fractured Greek city-states under Macedonian rule. Through diplomacy and force, Philip laid the groundwork for a unified Greece, and it was from him that Alexander inherited not just a kingdom, but a dream of conquest that extended far beyond the borders of Greece. Philip's military reforms, including the development of the powerful Macedonian phalanx and the innovative use of combined arms on the battlefield, were passed on to Alexander, who would refine and elevate these tactics to new heights in his future campaigns. Philip's relentless ambition and strategic brilliance set the stage for Alexander's empire building, making it clear that the young prince was not simply born to rule, but to expand and conquer. One of the most iconic symbols of Alexander's character and determination is the story of Bucephalus, his legendary horse. Bucephalus was a wild and untamable beast, feared by many and deemed impossible to ride. Yet, it was the young Alexander who saw something in the horse that no one else could, a reflection of his own indomitable spirit. At the age of 12, Alexander demonstrated not only his courage but also his keen understanding of animals by calming Bucephalus and successfully riding him, an act that left onlookers in awe. From that moment forward, Bucephalus became Alexander's loyal companion in battle, carrying him through some of his most famous victories. The bond between Alexander and Bucephalus was symbolic of the prince's ability to conquer the unconquerable, whether it was taming a wild horse or defeating vast armies on the battlefield. Bucephalus wasn't just a horse. He was a symbol of Alexander's extraordinary willpower and determination to overcome any obstacle in his path. The people who surrounded Alexander, including Aristotle, Philip II, and even Bucephalus, were more than just figures in his life. They were critical influences that shaped the course of his destiny. Aristotle gave him the intellectual tools to understand and appreciate the complexities of the world, while Philip provided him with a military foundation and the drive to pursue greatness through conquest. Bucephalus, on the other hand, became a living embodiment of Alexander's personal strength and his ability to achieve the impossible. Together, these figures formed the backdrop against which Alexander's epic journey unfolded, each playing a vital role in his transformation from a young prince into one of the greatest military leaders in history. Alexander's unique upbringing, combining the best of philosophical knowledge and military strategy, set him apart from any other ruler of his time. He was not just a king. He was a leader who understood the complexities of governance, the intricacies of culture, and the art of war. With his mind sharpened by Aristotle's teachings and his resolve strengthened by the legacy of his father, Alexander was ready to embark on the journey that would see him rise above the rest, forging an empire that would leave an indelible mark on history. Alexander's rise to power was nothing short of meteoric. At just 20 years old, following the assassination of his father, King Philip II, Alexander found himself thrust onto the throne of Macedonia. Many believed that the young king, inexperienced and still in the shadow of his father's accomplishments, would be easily controlled by the older and more established statesmen and generals. But Alexander was no puppet. From the moment he took the crown, he demonstrated not only an unwavering determination but also an astute political and military acumen that few could have predicted. His ascension was swift and decisive. He crushed internal dissent, secured his position as king, and within a mere 2 years, had pacified all of Greece. What followed was one of the most extraordinary military campaigns in history. With Greece under his control, Alexander turned his gaze eastward toward the vast Persian Empire, the most powerful empire the world had ever seen. For over 2 centuries, Persia had been a dominant force, controlling territories from Egypt to India. Yet Alexander, with the same confidence that had marked his early reign, dared to challenge this colossal empire. In 334 BC, he crossed the Hellespont with an army of 40,000 men, initiating a campaign that would change the course of history. The crossing of the Hellespont symbolized more than just the beginning of a military campaign. It was the start of a new era. Alexander's ambitions went beyond mere conquest. He sought to unify East and West under his rule, merging cultures and creating a legacy that would endure for centuries. The battles that followed were nothing short of legendary. At the Battle of Granicus, Alexander's forces faced the Persians in open combat for the first time. His use of the Macedonian phalanx, a tightly packed formation of soldiers armed with long spears, was revolutionary. Combined with his highly mobile cavalry, led by Alexander himself, This formation proved devastating against the Persian forces. His army's discipline and tactical flexibility allowed them to break through enemy lines and rout forces that far outnumbered them. Granicus was not just a victory. It was a statement to the world that Alexander was a force to be reckoned with. Following Granicus, Alexander pushed deeper into Persian territory, winning a series of decisive victories that showcased not only his military prowess but also his ability to adapt and innovate on the battlefield. The Battle of Issus, fought in 333 BC, further cemented his reputation as a master tactician. Despite being heavily outnumbered, Alexander's forces managed to outflank the Persian army, led by King Darius III himself. By targeting the weak points in the enemy's line and using terrain to his advantage, Alexander forced Darius to flee, leaving behind his army and his royal family. This victory shook the foundations of the Persian Empire, demonstrating that even the mightiest rulers could be brought low by Alexander's strategic brilliance. But perhaps the most famous of Alexander's battles was the Battle of Gaugamela in 331 BC. This was the climactic confrontation between Alexander and Darius III, and it was a battle of monumental scale, with Darius commanding a force that dwarfed Alexander's army. The Persian army boasted war elephants, scythed chariots, and tens of thousands of soldiers. However, sheer numbers alone could not stop Alexander's tactical genius. He once again employed his trusted phalanx in conjunction with his elite cavalry, but it was his ability to adapt mid-battle that truly shone. When Darius attempted to envelop his forces, Alexander executed a bold maneuver. He led a direct cavalry charge at the Persian center, targeting Darius himself. This unexpected move caused chaos within the Persian ranks, leading to a complete rout. Darius fled the battlefield, and with his retreat, the Persian Empire effectively collapsed, leaving Alexander in control of vast territories stretching from Asia Minor to the heart of Persia. Alexander's victories were not merely the result of brute force. They were the product of strategic innovation and a deep understanding of the art of war. He revolutionized military tactics, using the phalanx in ways that maximized its offensive potential while maintaining defensive strength. His cavalry was not just a supporting force but a decisive tool that could break enemy lines at key moments. Alexander's ability to read the battlefield and adjust his plans on the fly was unparalleled. His soldiers, fiercely loyal and highly disciplined, followed him with a near-religious devotion, trusting in his leadership and his vision of a united world. In just a few short years, Alexander went from securing his throne in Macedonia to defeating the largest and most powerful empire of his time. His victories at Granicus, Issus, and Gaugamela not only demonstrated his tactical brilliance but also marked the beginning of a new era in world history. An era defined by the rise of Hellenistic culture, the spread of Greek ideas, and the unprecedented expansion of a single man's influence over vast swaths of the known world. As Alexander pushed further east, the challenges he faced were no longer just about defeating armies on the battlefield. His journey into the heart of Asia brought him face to face with adversaries far more unforgiving than any military force: nature itself and the psychological toll of endless campaigning. While his conquests had been swift and spectacular, the further he ventured from Macedonia, the more difficult the journey became. The battles were not always fought with swords and strategy. Increasingly, they were against the brutal landscapes, the unpredictable climates, and the growing unrest within his own ranks. One of the most harrowing moments of Alexander's campaign came during the crossing of the Gadrosian Desert in 325 BC, as he sought to lead his army back from India through one of the most inhospitable regions of the world. The desert, located in modern-day southern Pakistan and Iran, was notorious for its extreme heat, barren terrain, and lack of water. Alexander's decision to march his troops through this deadly expanse was a bold and perilous one. The journey was grueling, and soon the heat, sandstorms, and scarcity of supplies began to take a devastating toll on his forces. It wasn't enemy soldiers that decimated his ranks, but the harsh environment. Alexander lost nearly 3/4 of his army to dehydration, heatstroke, and exhaustion. The once mighty force that had conquered vast swaths of the known world was reduced to a struggling, desperate band of survivors. This was a moment of profound crisis for Alexander, testing his leadership and resolve in ways no battle ever had. For the first time, Alexander's unshakable confidence wavered. His men, who had followed him faithfully through years of grueling campaigns, began to question his judgment. Many soldiers resented the seemingly endless march away from home, their families, and their way of life. The further east they ventured, the more foreign the landscapes and cultures became, and the harder it was to maintain morale. While Alexander thrived on the idea of expanding his empire and uniting the East and West, his men did not share the same grand vision. They were tired, homesick, and increasingly frustrated by the constant demands placed upon them. The Gaugamela desert was the breaking point for many. They began to wonder why they were risking their lives in such an unforgiving land, far removed from the wealth and glory they had expected when they set out years earlier. The desert march also brought tensions between Alexander and his officers to the surface. His Macedonian generals, many of whom had been with him since the beginning of his reign, started to openly question his decisions. They believed Alexander's desire to push ever further east was reckless and that he had become too consumed by his ambition. Some even suggested that he was no longer acting in the best interests of his men or his kingdom. The sense of unity that had once bound the army began to fray, and whispers of mutiny spread through the ranks. Alexander, who had always been able to inspire loyalty through his charisma and military genius, now found himself increasingly isolated, with only his closest companions remaining steadfast. At the same time, Alexander's growing adoption of Persian customs and his efforts to integrate Eastern and Western cultures sparked further discontent among his Macedonian soldiers. Many saw his behavior as a betrayal of their values and traditions. His decision to marry Roxana, a Persian princess, and encourage his soldiers to take Persian wives was viewed by some as an unacceptable blending of foreign cultures. Additionally, Alexander's attempts to introduce Persian-style court rituals, including the practice of proskynesis, an act of bowing before the king, deepened the divide between him and his Macedonian followers, who refused to see their king as a godlike figure deserving of such reverence. What had once been a shared mission of conquest now seemed, to many of his men, like a journey driven by Alexander's personal desires. Despite these challenges, Alexander's unyielding determination never fully faltered. Even in the face of near disaster in the Gaugamela desert, he continued to lead by example, sharing in the hardships of his men. He famously refused to drink water offered to him, pouring it out on the ground in front of his thirsty soldiers to show that he would endure the same suffering they did. This act of solidarity helped to restore some of the loyalty that had begun to erode, but the fractures in his army were deep and would not easily heal. Ultimately, the conflicts Alexander faced toward the end of his campaigns were not just external but deeply internal as well. His ambition to conquer the world had come at a cost, both to his army and to his relationships with those who had supported him from the beginning. As he moved ever further from the familiar lands of Greece and Macedonia, the tension between his personal dreams and the limits of his followers' endurance became increasingly clear. His drive to keep advancing, despite the immense toll it took, revealed the complex nature of leadership. The balance between vision and pragmatism, between ambition and loyalty. Alexander's ability to conquer the known world was unmatched, but his greatest challenge was navigating the conflicts and tensions that arose from within his own ranks, as his men, and perhaps even he himself, began to question the purpose of their endless march. The legacy of Alexander the Great extends far beyond his legendary conquests on the battlefield. While his military triumphs are often celebrated, his most enduring impact came from the cultural and political changes he initiated throughout the lands he conquered. Wherever Alexander went, he left a lasting imprint, not only by founding new cities, many of which bore his name, but by fostering a fusion of Greek and Eastern cultures that would reshape the ancient world. This process, known as Hellenization, transformed the regions of the Mediterranean, the Near East, and parts of Central Asia, creating a new cultural landscape that would influence generations to come. One of the most significant aspects of Alexander's legacy was his establishment of new cities, the most famous of which is Alexandria in Egypt. These cities served as outposts of Greek culture, governance, and trade, and they became hubs where the Greek way of life was intertwined with local traditions. Alexander encouraged his soldiers to marry local women and promoted the integration of diverse peoples within his empire, blending Greek and Eastern customs. This cultural synthesis was not just an incidental byproduct of conquest. It was a deliberate policy that Alexander believed would help unify his vast, multi-ethnic empire. By spreading Greek art, language, philosophy, and science across his territories, Alexander laid the groundwork for what would become known as the Hellenistic era, a period of unprecedented cultural exchange and intellectual flourishing. The Hellenistic period, which followed Alexander's death, marked a dramatic shift in the ancient world. Greek became the lingua franca across the Mediterranean and the Near East, allowing for easier communication and the spread of ideas between different cultures. This linguistic unity facilitated trade, diplomacy, and intellectual collaboration on a scale that had never been seen before. Greek literature, theater, and philosophy flourished in places like Alexandria, which became a center of learning and housed the famed Library of Alexandria, one of the greatest repositories of knowledge in the ancient world. The spread of Greek ideas also spurred advancements in science, mathematics, and medicine, influencing scholars and thinkers from many different cultures. Moreover, Alexander's vision of a united empire where East met West had profound implications for the political landscape. While his empire fragmented shortly after his death, the kingdoms that emerged, known as the Hellenistic kingdoms, continued to promote Greek culture and learning. The Seleucid Empire in Persia, the Ptolemaic kingdom in Egypt, and the Antigonid dynasty in Macedonia were all products of this Hellenistic world, blending Greek and local traditions in a way that created new forms of governance and cultural expression. These Hellenistic states maintained Greek as their administrative language and followed many of the political and cultural models set forth by Alexander, ensuring that his influence would persist long after his empire ceased to exist as a unified entity. The impact of Alexander's conquests can still be seen today in several key ways. First, his dissemination of Greek culture throughout the Middle East and Central Asia laid the foundation for the lasting influence of Greek thought and art in these regions. Greek architecture, language, and customs became embedded in the local cultures, leaving a legacy that endured for centuries. Even after the rise of new empires, such as Rome, the Hellenistic influence remained strong, contributing to the rich tapestry of cultural and intellectual life in the ancient world. Second, many of the cities Alexander founded continue to exist in some form today. The most prominent example is Alexandria in Egypt, which remains a major city and an enduring testament to his legacy. Founded in 331 BC, Alexandria quickly grew into a bustling metropolis, renowned for its lighthouse, one of the seven wonders of the ancient world, and its role as a center of scholarship and learning. The city's strategic location and cultural importance ensured its survival long after Alexander's death, and it continues to be a symbol of his lasting influence. Finally, Alexander's legacy can be seen in the way he inspired countless leaders and conquerors who came after him. Figures like Julius Caesar, Augustus, and even Napoleon Bonaparte looked to Alexander as a model of leadership, ambition, and military genius. Caesar famously wept upon seeing a statue of Alexander, lamenting that he had achieved so little by the same age that Alexander had conquered the known world. For these leaders, Alexander represented the pinnacle of what a ruler could achieve through vision, determination, and boldness. Alexander the Great's legacy is one of profound and lasting cultural transformation. His conquests spread Greek culture across vast territories, creating a new world in which ideas, art, and knowledge flowed freely between East and West. The Hellenistic era, which followed in the wake of his campaigns, stands as a testament to the power of cultural fusion and the enduring influence of Greek civilization. Alexander's cities, policies, and vision of a connected world left a mark that can still be felt today, reminding us that his achievements were not only those of a conqueror but of a unifier and a visionary. His legacy, much like his empire, transcends borders and continues to shape our understanding of leadership, culture, and the transformative power of a single individual. Alexander the Great was not merely a military genius. He was also a forward-thinking innovator who understood the importance of using and advancing technology to achieve his expansive goals. While he relied on the existing technologies of the time, such as the Macedonian phalanx and siege weapons, Alexander also encouraged and implemented new innovations that enhanced his military campaigns. His success was not just the result of superior tactics, but also of his ability to adapt and evolve with the tools at his disposal, often pushing the boundaries of what was possible in warfare and exploration. One of the most remarkable aspects of Alexander's campaigns was the entourage of scholars, geographers, botanists, and engineers who accompanied his army. These individuals were tasked with cataloging the flora, fauna, and geographic features of the newly conquered territories. Alexander had a deep curiosity about the world and sought to understand and document the lands he was bringing under his rule. This pursuit of knowledge was not purely academic. It served a practical purpose as well. By mapping unknown territories, these scholars helped Alexander's forces navigate and understand the landscapes they were entering. This knowledge gave his army a strategic advantage in unfamiliar environments, allowing them to anticipate natural obstacles and use the terrain to their benefit in battle. Alexander's campaigns also contributed significantly to the exchange of technological knowledge across the regions he conquered. As his empire expanded, so too did the flow of information and innovation between East and West. His armies encountered technologies from various cultures, including advancements in engineering, construction, and even medicine, which were then absorbed into the Macedonian military machine. This exchange of ideas was one of the defining features of the Hellenistic period that followed Alexander's conquests, as Greek, Persian, Egyptian, and Indian innovations blended to create new advancements that would shape the ancient world for centuries. One of the most significant military innovations attributed to Alexander's campaigns was the development and use of mobile siege equipment, particularly the mobile catapult. Prior to Alexander, Catapults were typically used in fixed positions during the siege of fortified cities. These large machines, capable of hurling massive stones or other projectiles at enemy fortifications, were slow to move and often had to be constructed on site. However, Alexander's engineers revolutionized the use of these siege weapons by making them more mobile, allowing them to be deployed in field battles as well. This adaptation proved invaluable during his campaigns, particularly in situations where quick strikes against enemy positions were needed. The introduction of mobile catapults allowed Alexander to take siege warfare to a new level, making it possible to bring these powerful weapons into the field, rather than limiting them to static sieges of fortified cities. This innovation increased the flexibility and firepower of his army, enabling them to break enemy lines and defensive positions with greater ease. In battles where terrain or enemy fortifications posed significant challenges, the mobility of his siege engines gave Alexander a critical advantage, allowing his forces to maintain momentum and pressure on opposing armies. The impact of these innovations in siege technology can be seen in his conquests of heavily fortified cities like Tyre and Gaza, where his mastery of siegecraft was instrumental in achieving victory. Beyond the battlefield, Alexander's encouragement of technological advancements extended into other areas, such as infrastructure and city planning. As he founded numerous cities across his empire, particularly the various Alexandrias, Alexander's engineers and architects were tasked with incorporating the latest innovations in urban design. These cities were built with sophisticated systems for water management, sanitation, and defense, often blending Greek and local architectural techniques to create thriving urban centers. Many of these cities became important hubs for trade, culture, and scientific discovery, continuing Alexander's legacy as a promoter of knowledge and innovation long after his death. Alexander's campaigns were not just defined by brute military force, but by his innovative use of technology and his desire to push the boundaries of what was possible. His use of mobile siege weapons, the integration of scholars and scientists into his military campaigns, and the promotion of technological exchange between different cultures all contributed to the lasting impact of his conquests. Alexander's legacy as an innovator is as significant as his legacy as a conqueror, with the advancements made during his reign laying the foundation for the Hellenistic world and influencing generations to come. His ability to blend technological progress with military strategy set him apart as a leader who not only conquered lands but also fostered an environment where knowledge and innovation could thrive. While Alexander the Great was conquering empires, the daily lives of people within his vast dominion were undergoing profound transformations. His campaigns not only redrew the political map of the ancient world, but they also sparked significant changes in commerce, culture, and societal structures. As Alexander expanded his empire from Greece to Egypt and deep into Central Asia and India, the flow of goods, ideas, and people between these distant lands increased dramatically, creating a new interconnectedness that reshaped everyday life in his territories. One of the most immediate changes was the expansion of trade routes. Alexander's conquests opened up new markets and facilitated the movement of goods across regions that had previously been isolated from one another. Greek merchants, eager to capitalize on the opportunities provided by Alexander's empire, established new trade routes that connected the Mediterranean world with distant lands to the east. These routes brought luxury goods such as silk from China, spices and precious stones from India, and exotic animals from Africa into the bustling markets of cities like Babylon, Alexandria, and Athens. The influx of these goods transformed the economies of the Mediterranean world, providing new wealth and opportunities for traders and artisans alike. In the cities founded by Alexander, such as the many Alexandrias, a vibrant cultural exchange emerged. These cities were not just Greek outposts in foreign lands. They became melting pots where people from all corners of the empire came together. Greeks, Persians, Egyptians, and Indians lived side by side, and the blending of their cultures was reflected in everything from architecture and language to clothing and cuisine. Greek became the lingua franca of the empire, enabling people from diverse backgrounds to communicate and trade more easily. Markets in these cities were filled with a dazzling array of products, as local goods mixed with imports from across the known world, reflecting the new global reach of Alexander's empire. The blending of cultures extended beyond trade to more personal aspects of daily life. In many of these new cities, intermarriage between Greeks and locals was encouraged, a policy that Alexander himself promoted through his own marriage to Roxana, a Persian princess. This led to a fusion of traditions and customs in households, where Greek practices mixed with those of the East. For example, Greek citizens in Persia might adopt Persian clothing styles or integrate elements of local religious practices into their own lives, while Persians and Egyptians in Greek-dominated cities began to embrace aspects of Greek culture, such as attending Greek theaters and participating in Greek sports. This blending of traditions helped to create a new cosmopolitan society, where cultural exchange was not only accepted but celebrated. Education and the arts flourished under Alexander's rule, contributing to the changes in daily life across his empire. In the cities he founded, schools and libraries were established, attracting scholars from all over the ancient world. These institutions became centers for learning, where Greek philosophers, Persian mathematicians, and Indian astronomers shared knowledge and collaborated on new discoveries. The famous Library of Alexandria, for example, became the intellectual heart of the Hellenistic world, preserving and advancing knowledge in a variety of fields, from literature to science. For the citizens of Alexander's empire, this new access to education and intellectual exchange offered opportunities for personal and professional growth that had not existed before. Religion also played a key role in the lives of people across Alexander's empire. And here, too, cultural integration was evident. While Alexander himself embraced the worship of Greek gods, he also respected the religious traditions of the peoples he conquered. Temples to Greek gods were built alongside the shrines of local deities, and religious festivals from different cultures were celebrated side by side. This tolerance for religious diversity helped to foster a sense of unity in the diverse regions of his empire, as people were allowed to maintain their own spiritual practices while also participating in the broader religious life of the Hellenistic world. The structure of social and political life in Alexander's empire also evolved as a result of his conquests. In many places, the traditional roles of kings, nobles, and commoners began to blur as Greek political ideas spread throughout the empire. Alexander's cities were often governed by councils of citizens, reflecting the democratic principles that had originated in Greece. However, these cities also had to accommodate the existing political systems of the lands they were built in, leading to a hybrid form of governance that combined elements of Greek democracy with local aristocratic or monarchical traditions. This political blending mirrored the cultural exchanges happening at every level of society, as people navigated the complexities of living in a new, multicultural world. For ordinary citizens, daily life was a reflection of this evolving empire. Farmers continued to work the land, but now they might sell their surplus to merchants who would transport it across the empire. Artisans in the cities found new markets for their crafts, as their products could be traded over great distances. Women, who traditionally had limited public roles in many parts of the ancient world, found new opportunities in the more cosmopolitan environment of Hellenistic cities, where they could participate in the marketplace and even receive education in some places. Life in the countryside might have remained more stable and traditional, but even there, the presence of soldiers, traders, and travelers from distant lands brought new ideas and influences. Alexander's empire created a new world of cultural exchange and economic expansion that transformed daily life for millions of people. His conquests broke down barriers between East and West, facilitating a level of interaction that had never been seen before. While life in the villages and fields may have continued much as it always had, in the cities, a new way of life was emerging, one that blended the best of Greek and Eastern cultures into something entirely new. This fusion of ideas, customs, and technologies laid the foundation for the Hellenistic Age, a period of history that would shape the ancient world long after Alexander's empire had fragmented. The changes in daily life brought about by his conquests were as significant as the political and military victories themselves, creating a legacy of cultural interaction and innovation that endures to this day. One of the most defining aspects of Alexander the Great's empire was his unique approach to cultural fusion. Unlike many conquerors before him, who sought to impose their own culture on the lands they conquered, Alexander pursued a policy of integration. He aimed not merely to spread Greek culture across the vast territories he controlled, but to create a synthesis between Greek traditions and those of the Eastern civilizations he encountered. This blending of cultures became one of the hallmarks of his empire, and it had a lasting impact on the ancient world. Alexander's vision was of a world where East and West were not divided, but united in a shared cultural, political, and intellectual framework. This intercultural approach stood in stark contrast to the policies of other empires of the time, particularly the Persian Empire. The Persian model of governance was relatively hands-off when it came to local customs and traditions. The Persians allowed the various peoples within their vast empire to maintain their own cultures, languages, and religions, as long as they paid tribute and recognized the overarching authority of the Persian king. While this policy of tolerance prevented rebellion and maintained stability, it also kept the cultures of the empire largely separate. There was no significant attempt to merge the many diverse traditions under a single cultural banner, and Persian identity remained distinct from the cultures of its subject peoples. Alexander's approach was different. He recognized the value of both Greek and Eastern cultures and sought to merge them into something greater than the sum of their parts. His policy of cultural fusion began with symbolic acts, such as his adoption of Persian dress and customs after conquering the Persian Empire. This was a clear statement that he did not see himself merely as a Greek ruler imposing his will on foreign lands, but as a ruler of a diverse, multi-ethnic empire who embraced the traditions of the people he ruled. By adopting Persian customs and marrying a Persian princess, Roxana, Alexander demonstrated his willingness to bridge the cultural divide between Greece and Persia, and he encouraged his soldiers and officials to do the same. The cities Alexander founded, particularly the numerous Alexandrias, became melting pots of cultural exchange, where Greek, Persian, Egyptian, and Indian ideas, religions, and customs could mingle freely. Greek became the lingua franca of the empire, facilitating trade and communication across vast distances, but local traditions were also preserved and respected. In many of these cities, intermarriage between Greeks and local populations was encouraged, and the blending of Greek and Eastern religious practices, art, and architecture became common. This deliberate policy of cultural synthesis helped to unify Alexander's empire and fostered a sense of shared identity among its diverse inhabitants. One of the most striking examples of Alexander's cultural fusion was in the realm of religion. Rather than imposing the worship of Greek gods on his newly conquered subjects, Alexander often participated in local religious ceremonies and honored the gods of the lands he ruled. In Egypt, he was declared the son of the god Ammonius and was treated as a pharaoh, while in Persia, he honored the traditions of Zoroastrianism. By respecting and integrating local religious beliefs into his own identity as a ruler, Alexander reinforced the idea that his empire was not just a Greek empire, but a true blending of East and West. This approach had long-lasting consequences. The period following Alexander's death, known as the Hellenistic era, was defined by the continued fusion of Greek and Eastern cultures. Hellenistic cities became centers of learning and cultural exchange, where scholars from across the known world came to study, share ideas, and collaborate on new discoveries. Greek philosophy, science, and art spread throughout the East, while Eastern religious practices, artistic styles, and technologies influenced Greek society in turn. The result was a vibrant and dynamic cultural landscape that spanned from the Mediterranean to the edges of India, laying the foundation for centuries of intellectual and cultural growth. Alexander's vision of cultural fusion also influenced the way subsequent empires approached governance and cultural integration. The Roman Empire, for example, borrowed many aspects of Alexander's policies, particularly his respect for local traditions and his willingness to integrate foreign customs into Roman life. Like Alexander, the Romans understood that the key to maintaining a vast and diverse empire was not to impose a single culture on all its subjects, but to create a flexible system that allowed different peoples to contribute to a shared imperial identity. This approach helped the Roman Empire endure for centuries, much as it had strengthened Alexander's empire during his lifetime. The legacy of Alexander's policy of cultural fusion is a testament to the power of one individual to change the course of history. In a relatively short period, Alexander not only conquered vast territories but also reshaped the cultural and political landscape of the ancient world. His vision of a world where East and West could coexist and enrich each other continues to inspire, reminding us that true greatness lies not only in conquest but in the ability to unite and uplift diverse peoples and cultures. As we reflect on Alexander's legacy today, it is clear that his impact goes beyond his military achievements. His policy of cultural fusion stands as a model for how empires, and, by extension, modern nations, can build unity not through domination or suppression, but through mutual respect, cooperation, and the blending of traditions. In a world that often seems divided along cultural and ideological lines, Alexander's vision offers a powerful reminder that it is possible to create something new and greater by bringing different peoples together, rather than keeping them apart. His life and his empire challenge us to think about the true meaning of greatness, not just in terms of military victories or territorial expansion, but in terms of the legacy we leave behind for future generations. Alexander the Great died in 323 BC, at the age of just 32, yet in the span of a little over a decade, he had created one of the largest empires the world had ever seen. His achievements, both on the battlefield and in the realm of cultural exchange, continue to resonate through the corridors of history. But his story is not just one of triumph and expansion. It is also a cautionary tale about the nature of power, the dangers of unchecked ambition, and the human desire for immortality through conquest and legacy. Alexander's life offers profound lessons about the transformative power of vision, but also about the costs of an insatiable pursuit of glory. Alexander's ambition was boundless, and his vision extended far beyond the immediate goal of conquest. He sought not only to dominate territories but to integrate and unite the many diverse cultures of the world under one rule, one civilization. His dream was to create a world where East and West merged, where different peoples could coexist under a shared identity influenced by Greek culture but open to the richness of local traditions. This idealistic vision was revolutionary for its time and stands as one of his most enduring contributions to history. However, his relentless pursuit of this dream came at a great cost, both to the people he conquered and to his own men, many of whom grew weary of the endless campaigns far from home. Today, as we reflect on the life of Alexander, we are faced with important questions about the nature of leadership and ambition. What can we learn from Alexander's legacy? Does his unyielding drive for conquest have a place in our modern world, where power and influence are often measured not by territory, but by economic, cultural, and technological dominance? In some ways, Alexander's story serves as a timeless reminder of the power of human ambition. His achievements demonstrate what is possible when one individual dares to dream beyond the constraints of the present, using determination, strategy, and charisma to shape the future. Yet, Alexander's story also warns us of the perils of absolute power. His desire to control the known world led to great suffering, both for his enemies and for his own people. The further he pushed his empire's borders, the more isolated he became, disconnected from the realities faced by his soldiers and subjects. His drive for eternal glory consumed him, leaving little room for reflection or rest. In the end, his empire, though vast and impressive, was fragile. It fractured soon after his death, splitting into warring factions that ultimately undermined the very unity Alexander had fought so hard to achieve. In a modern context, Alexander's life invites us to consider the balance between ambition and humility, between power and responsibility. While his accomplishments are undeniably extraordinary, they also serve as a reminder of the limits of human power and the dangers of overreach. The world he sought to unite fell apart, largely because his empire was built on the fragile foundation of personal ambition rather than lasting institutions. His story encourages us to think critically about how we define success and greatness in our own time. Is it measured by expansion and control, or by the ability to foster lasting peace, understanding, and cooperation? More than 2 millennia after his death, Alexander the Great's legacy continues to challenge and inspire us. His life and conquests provoke us to think deeply about the nature of leadership, ambition, and the impact one individual can have on the world. His story endures not just because of the vast empire he built, but because of the complex and enduring questions it raises about the human condition. As we navigate the challenges of our own time, we may find both caution and inspiration in Alexander's journey, a reminder of the extraordinary heights that vision and determination can achieve, but also of the importance of reflection, restraint, and the understanding that true greatness may lie not in conquest, but in the ability to bring people together. Perhaps this is Alexander's greatest legacy, the power to inspire and provoke reflection long after his empire crumbled into dust. His life reminds us that while the pursuit of greatness is a noble endeavor, it is the lessons learned along the way, and the lasting impact on future generations, that truly define the worth of any legacy. Whether we see Alexander as a hero, a conqueror, or a cautionary figure, his story will continue to fascinate and challenge us for centuries to come.